Preseason hockey is officially here. The St. Louis Blues went 0-2, or I guess 0-1-1 in week one of the preseason after losses to the Dallas Stars and the Columbus Blue Jackets. So, what can we take away from these games in the beginning of training camp? Which players and prospects have stood out so far? Who's been performing well? Is anyone performing not so well? That are in roster battles and things like that. And after a goal and assist, in the first two games, how will Justin Carbonneau continue to perform throughout the preseason? Can he crack the NHL roster? When might we see him up in St. Louis? We're going to talk about all this stuff and more today on Note News. Welcome into another episode of Note News. We're a St. Louis Blues podcast, talking all things Blues. It's John and Alec back with you as always. And as I mentioned, we have preseason hockey to talk about. The Blues are back on the ice, and we have games and practices as well to react to. So today we're going to be talking about what we've heard and seen from the first couple weeks of training camp, first couple games of the preseason, talk about what all this might mean for the Blues in the regular season. So yeah, it should be a fun discussion. And if you missed our last episode, definitely go check that out because that was our bold predictions episode and also our NHL predictions where we predicted Stanley Cup winners and award winners. So that was a really fun one. If you like prediction stuff, go check that out, as well as some of our other season preview content. And if you like Blues hockey and like the content we're bringing, then be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like this video, follow, rate, review wherever you listen. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod. Post a lot of other great stuff over there. But yeah, really, if you love the Blues, we're here talking about them pretty frequently, and we go live and love to have everyone join the conversation. Alec, how have you been doing through preseason? We got hockey again.
I'm ready for hockey to be back. I'll tell you what, I've been really gearing up for the regular season. I'm getting locked in again.
Oh yeah.
It's fun to listen to games on the ice because I can't find a way to stream it during the preseason. Such is the way, but hopefully I'll be going to one of these preseason games pretty soon, and I'm just excited for hockey to be back. I can't believe we finally made it. Actually listening to real meaningful statistics and meaningful with an asterisk, but moments at least stand out, and hopefully no injuries, knock on wood, but I'm here for it. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, hopefully no injuries. There's been a really one main scare so far, but he seems to be okay.
Yeah,
We'll definitely get into
too
that.
close.
Too close indeed. So yeah, so as you said, we're gonna talk about these games that have been played, what we've seen or heard in Alex's case. Um, Also, we are reacting to some reports that have come out of camp from like Jeremy Rutherford, Lou Korak, and other Blues reporters like that. So we're just sort of giving our takes here on what these reports might mean for the regular season, for roster battles and roster construction, all that kind of stuff. And I definitely want to have the Justin Carbonneau discussion. So like, I think every year we do this thing, right, where preseason hockey carries too much weight. And I think a good rule of thumb is that this early on in the preseason, like the first week of the preseason, really carry, it doesn't really carry any consequences for the regular season all that much. I mean, besides, potential injuries that could occur or anything like that. But really, like this is the time of the preseason where the young guys and the prospects are seeing the most playing time. They're, getting the opportunity to play with some NHLers and things like that. Getting their first looks to potentially make the roster, but like truly NHL players aren't really joining the fold and like really giving it their all. I wouldn't guess. Maybe there are some that are going all out, but like really the next couple weeks is when the more consequential stuff will start to happen for the NHL. But I think anything that happens in the preseason has to be taken with a grain of salt. But so what I want to do is just sort of go player by player, or do you want to start looking at some players in particular, or do you want to start by reacting to um, the two preseason games that have been played so far?
I feel like the games themselves haven't really mattered as much just because
Hmm.
they are preseason and like there's so little you can take away from such limited ice time and like, your big stars haven't even taken the ice. So I think we
Yeah.
should just focus on the players.
Okay, I'll give a quick recap then of the
Yeah.
first couple games, just the notable stuff. So, first game, the Blues lost 2-1 in the shootout. So, went to OT and the shootout. I think what's most notable about this one for me, I'll just start with the top line. So it was Dalibor Dvorsky, Justin Carbonneau, and Dylan Holloway. They were, or I guess, um, Carbo, Devo, Holloway, or I think Devo was centering that line. They saw a lot of ice time. Devo saw just under 19 minutes. Carbo saw just over 20 minutes, and Dylan Holloway saw 22 minutes on the ice. So they saw a lot of playing time. Justin Carbonneau obviously scored a goal, super exciting, um, and assisting that goal was Logan Mayu, who kind of it was a fun goal. I mean, like Logan Mayu, he was over on the the left side of the ice around the face-off circle, and Logan Mayu just passed it to him. Carbo, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's kind of cool. He's like looking up like he's gonna pass, and I think the goalie thought he was gonna pass too, but he just slipped it 5 hole, and it was a little anticlimactic, but it was crafty for sure. And then on the defense, I think the notable thing is that Logan Mayu is playing alongside Philip Broberg. Mayu saw 25 minutes on the ice uh, that game, so a lot of playing time, and then got an assist, like I said. And then the other big thing is just the goalies. I thought they did really well. Jordan Bennington saved 19 of 20 shots for a 950 save percentage, and Colton Ellis saved 14 of 14. So, um, yeah, I mean, a great game from the goalies, which is really, really great to see. And then just a couple fun stuff from some of the younger guys as well. The next game, also a loss, unfortunately. This one was a little bit less exciting. Blues won, Columbus Blue Jackets 4. So not great, but it was back-to-back games. I think the notable thing here, Carbonneau like almost almost had a goal. I think it was tipped in right by Alexandrov, so didn't quite get his second goal there, but came close. Got a second point, so that's pretty cool. Um, and then Adam Yurchek saw some playing time as well. Played 23 minutes. That's sort of the big thing. And then the goalies in that one were Vadim Zarenko and Joel Hofer. Joel Hofer played 2 periods and saved 13 of 15 shots. So a little bit less of a pretty start from Hofer, but it's still early, so don't really need to extrapolate or take a whole lot away from that. But I think they just sort of got overpowered against Dallas. Like they got outshot. Didn't really win any faceoffs and that kind of stuff. So I think that was sort of the story there. And then it was a little bit more even with Columbus, but I think probably just poor defense is the story of that one. Well, cool. So now that we've done that, do you have any thoughts you want to add on the first couple games before we shift to talking about players?
I mean, I think there are some players who really stood out. I guess
Sure.
I think before we get into it too much, I do want to shout out the goaltending. I think the goaltending has been pretty good. There have been a lot of like really like stellar looking saves in preseason games where they really wouldn't have to put in that effort, and they did. So if anything, that shows work ethic. Box scores and stats can kind of be tossed aside for preseason, but I do like to see the work ethic from the goalies, and I think that's been a highlight so far of the preseason.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would agree. Um, yeah, if anything, I think the goalie's coming out looking good. Like that's a good sign. I don't know. Good that they're off to a good start. Okay, well, so I think what I might like to do is, do you want to talk like prospects first, and then talk NHLers?
Sure, we could do it that way.
Sure. So like, I mean, these first couple games, the prospects have seen a lot of playing time. Dalibor Dvorsky, obviously, as I said, he played like 22 shifts or something like that. And Justin Carbonneau has obviously been a bright spot of the beginning of the preseason. The Blues have also sent down a few players. I think they made like 4 cuts or something like that. I'm gonna pull up the list now, but has anyone like other than the obvious guys stood out to you? I think there's more of a conversation to be had around Dvorsky, around Carbonneau, but like Stenberg, for example, has seen some time in training camp, not necessarily in the games, but in training camp alongside some like I think he's been playing with Robert Thomas, if I saw that correctly. I'm trying to remember where I saw that, but any other guys like that you've heard or seen something cool about or has been on your mind?
Stenberg really is the other guy outside of, I think, JC.
Mm,
Stenberg has been really impressive to me, as I guess I find myself lower on Stenberg than consensus. Not that I think he's a terrible player. I just don't think he's ever going to be like a huge impact NHLer. But he's showing that he wants to fight for this roster, and he's showing grit to do so. So Stenberg is sort of having to learn a new style of hockey under Jim Montgomery here, and to learn a different way to play that is Blues hockey. But he's taken to it actually really, really well. He's not afraid to throw his body around and really knows how to use his lower half to put himself in good positions. So I've been really liking what I've seen out of Otto Stenberg, as the other guy to focus on. And then yeah, Carbonneau and Dvorsky have been awesome. I Carbonneau more so than Dvorsky. Partially what led me to my um, bold prediction of predicting Carbonneau to play more than Dvorsky. But JC has had the runway. He's played in both preseason games. He's the only player to do that, and he has looked exceptional. So, but outside of those two, I think Otto Stenberg is the next guy up, and he does look better than I would have thought at this point in his development.
yeah, for sure. And so the report was that in practice he's been playing alongside Robert Thomas and Jimmy Snuggerud. Montgomery had some good things to say about him, so I think he's making a good impression. I mean, he's not gonna be in St. Louis really this season at all. I wouldn't expect. But good that he's getting that experience, and that's sort of the main thing for a lot of these guys here early on. The list of names that have been assigned to their junior teams are Antoine Dorian, Lucas Fisher, Adam Yeko, and William McIsaac. So those are the guys that have left so far. There's probably going to be more that come pretty soon. But yeah, so why don't we save the Carbonneau discussion for a little bit later? But what about Dvorsky? So I mean, he as you said, I mean, like it's exciting to see him get some time, especially like centering the top line for that first game. Some of his other stat lines. He had a block through a hit, but had 4 giveaways, and his faceoff percentage was 42.9. So not a great faceoff percentage there for him. But like, what do you want to see? What do you expect to see out of Dvorsky for the remainder of the preseason? Just sort of like general thoughts on what he needs to do for the remainder of preseason. Is there any world where we might see him up in St. Louis sooner than expected? Just general Devo thoughts.
I think he's looking right on track. I think he's following into where he should be at this point in his career. I know you pointed out, and Matt in the chat pointed out, his faceoff percentage was not all that good. Excuse me, but he was going up against the Dallas Stars, who were one of the best faceoff winning teams, have one of the best center cores in the NHL. And in the AHL, actually, last season he was above average in the faceoff dot. So I kind of expect that to come along. Maybe it's just a matchup thing, or maybe I don't know. Maybe it is something that he needs to work a lot harder on. But I'm not as worried about Dvorsky in the center spot. And I think having him in that center spot does put so much more excitement and possibility for playmaking that was partially on display. He didn't get too much. Uh, they didn't call his number too often when I was listening, but he was still at least showing off, that craftiness, that clever playmaking ability that's always been there. So I would say Dvorsky is like on track. I don't think he's necessarily excelling his expectations right now, which is to be you could say that's to be expected of like a 19, 20-year old skater. I think he's 20. Um,
Hmm.
but I think with Dvorsky, I don't know that he's necessarily raising his stock all that much outside of like where you would expect the bar to be raised to. And I think he's hit that. And I think he's hit a lot of green lights in terms of um, showing off against really a difficult ask in the Dallas Stars and their somehow still semi deep prospect pool too. Um, so I really liked what I've seen out of Dvorsky. Again, it's just like it hasn't really been as exciting as one might hope. I don't know if this is earning him more games in St. Louis, but I still think he's going to get the runtime. I still think he's going to get the games in St. Louis just by nature of the natural flow and progression of development. And I think he's falling right in line to continue that path.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think if he were to, you know, really kick it up a notch and have a chance to make the opening day roster or something like that. I mean, that's a conversation that I think we were having this time last year was how exciting he was, and is there a chance that he can make make the opening roster this soon? Like that was something we were talking about last year. So I mean, it's definitely still on a lot of people's minds right now. I think if he were to make a case for himself, it would be for one of those sort of like remaining two spots left on the roster that we're sort of assuming right now will be going to the likes of Matthew Joseph and Alexander Texier. I think that's also one of the spots that Milan Lucic is battling for. We'll talk a little bit about um, our thoughts on who might actually win those spots, but I think for Dvorsky to do it would take the rest of the three of them or two of the others to really not look all that great probably, and then Devo like really turning it around and standing out more than he has already. I don't think he's I'm not worried about how he's looked. I'm just saying like he hasn't played it at such an elite level that would be required for him to make the NHL already. So um, that's sort of my thoughts on Devo, but yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Well, cool. So why don't we pivot now? We'll talk about Justin Carbonneau in a bit because I feel like he is maybe someone we could have a bit of a more extended discussion on. But I want to kind of shift to some of the other guys and some of the other news that we've got out of camp so far. And I want to start with uh, James P. Snuggerud, ya boy. Um, so early reports out of camp are that he looks pretty good. I think Monty likes what he's seeing out of him. Um, there's a couple quotes coming from Montgomery that sort of saying he looks good and creative and things like that. But have you seen that funny quote that he told Snuggerud not to buy an apartment yet because he's still got to make the team? I think that's pretty
No.
funny. I think that's pretty funny and not a bad philosophy. Like, hey, like you were playing on the top line last year, but um, you haven't been around super long. So I think that's a great way to keep a young player like that motivated. And I think for his part, Snugger took it in stride. So that's pretty funny. One thing that I really like that I've seen is that a lot of people think he has looked like a stronger skater, and that's sort of been one area of his game that hasn't been quite as strong as some of the others. So the fact that's an early report, I think, is a good sign. I'm not saying that he'll turn that around and become an elite skater or anything like that, but just good signs and things like that. Although there was a bit of a hiccup early on in camp. I mean, he apparently crashed into the boards pretty hard and is day to day isn't isn't supposed to be a huge issue. Um, but the did you see the quote from Montgomery that was like, it wasn't too bad. It's like a like think of it like a bad car accident. I was like, that's not exactly reassuring. Uh, like that worries me more than day to day. But it seems like it probably was just got the wind knocked out of him and just hit the boards a little bit too hard and might just be taking it easy for a little bit. But hopefully it's not anything too serious. So yeah, fingers crossed on that one. But I think he probably should be fine. But yeah, like what are your thoughts on Snowroot early camp? I mean, do you still think he's got that top roster or that top line winger spot rather? Yeah, just Snuggerud thoughts. Let's hear it.
Yeah, the Snuggerud injury, quote unquote, seems to be pretty much resolving itself. It does seem like he just got the wind knocked out of him, and he'll be okay. Knock on wood, he stays healthy, but things are pointing in the right direction on that regard to get ahead of that. But the reports that interest me, I think what you touched on is that yeah, he's bulked up, like he's added muscle.
Yeah, that too.
Not just stronger skating, just stronger as a person. Probably focusing on his lower body to get those stronger strides and become a more confident skater. But he's added muscle for sure. He definitely looks bigger and heftier, not in a bad way at all. In a very like that's the kind of player that would just
Hmm.
suck to play against, and I think that's what Jimmy Snuggerud wants to be, is just a pest of hockey playing energy on the ice, which is so exciting and so much fun to think about.
And I'll tell you
And I think he
this.
can do it.
I mean, like if that becomes a part of his game, the Ovechkin comparisons will only continue. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I love it. Um, but Snuggerud, I think will end up playing on the top line. I think he'll earn it. I think he's shown enough last season to have quote unquote already earned that spot. And
Mhm.
Monty saying that is sort of tongue in cheek, but it's a way to motivate him. But also, I think it is kind of a just having some fun because Jimmy Snuggerud is one of the nine best skaters on the team, nine best forwards on the team, no doubt about it, and deserves a spot on that top line. And has shown it so far in camp. He's shown that he could put in the work in the off season. Once again, showing that work ethic for a player is something that's so hard to measure, especially for us, fans and podcasters. But this is how you do it: is by looking at what changes do you see when you have an extended period of rest. And Snuggerud bulked up and he put on
Mhm.
the muscle, and he's proven that he's a hard worker in my eyes to show out that he's ready to compete for contention in the NHL and be a big reason why this team can succeed and do great things. So I am very much excited to watch Snuggerud play. I still think nothing but great things about the kid in terms of his hockey ability. I have zero doubts in my mind that his added bulk will impact his game in any negative way at all, just because he wasn't really at like a threshold size anyway. It just is a helps him stay up and maybe stay out of the injury report. So I'm super happy to see it, and I'm super happy to see that drive from the kid already, like barely tasted the NHL and already is hungry for more. Give me all of the Snuggerud stock.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, is there like what else? So you have predicted it wasn't your bold prediction. This was just your take, and I don't think it is a bold prediction to say that Jimmy Snuggerud is a potential Calder Trophy winner. He's your pick to win the Calder. Um, so with that in mind, what do you want to see out of him for the remainder of preseason before we ramp up to the regular season?
I'd like to see him, I think, get on the stat sheet a little bit. I think I want to see him show off his creativity and his goal scoring ability, because I think his playmaking really came along much better than I would have thought. But I think that goal scoring that was so touted with Snuggerud
Hmm.
um, is maybe taking a little bit longer to come through. And so I'd like to see him get on the stat sheet in some of these preseason games. I get it that it's just preseason, but it's also still work that has to be done and effort that has to be put in. And it is an every given night type of thing. So there is that to be considered. But I still think that Snuggerud has all the talent in the world and should be showing off that he is one of the better skaters on the ice, even if it is just preseason. So I'd like to see a little bit more out of him there.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's totally fair. Once he heals up and is, or I guess, quote unquote heals up. I mean, I don't know that he has a lot of healing to do, but once he's ready to get back out on the ice, yeah, and they start to play some more games, I'd love to see him do his thing. Um, yeah, I mean, I think to win the Calder Trophy, not saying that that should be his goal is to win the Calder Trophy. I think you want a guy that wants what's best for the team. But if he is to win the Calder Trophy, I think he's gonna need every bit of the 82 games to try and reach that roughly 60-point threshold that's often required of rookies in their first year to win that. And so, um, yeah, I think you'd want him to come out of the gate ready to go. Um, another guy who another young guy with there's some injury related news, but it's more positive is Dylan Holloway. He appears to be fully healthy. I mean, he obviously missed the end of the season last season, which was disappointing, especially for that the playoff series. Um, and he's coming off what sounds like a pretty significant abdomen procedure. So it would be fair to expect that it would take him a while to get back into the swing of things, but by all reports, he is like fully ready to go and 100%. So that's great news. I think he's back out there doing Dylan Holloway type things, which means skating fast and you know throwing hits around, playing dynamically, that kind of stuff. So that's great to see. It sounds like he says that he feels fine and doesn't feel like he's restricted in any way while playing. So that's great. Obviously, went out and played. What did I say? Like 22 minutes against Dallas. So that's great news. And my bold prediction last episode was that he would make Team Canada, and so he'll need to come out pretty hot if that is to come true. So glad to hear that for Holloway. I don't know that I have a lot to say on Holloway, just that you know glad that he's healthy. He obviously has a spot in the top six. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, what you got?
and I think building off that, just how good it is to see him skating this effectively, like to come back, like get all the green lights that he came back from injury totally healthy and totally recovered, is just a huge, huge deal. Because, like you said, it was a pretty nasty procedure. It was pretty serious. So there should be no doubts, no selling on Holloway stock for any injury reasons. And that it's a huge green light to hit just after any type of major procedure, especially for a young guy who's still kind of growing into his body as a 23-year-old. Um, 23, 24?
Yeah, I
I
think
get
this is
ages
his.
mixed up.
I think this is his age 24 season. He might still
Yeah,
be
he
23.
just, you know what? He just turned 24.
Oh, his birthday was like yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
that's right. That's right. But
Happy
anyways,
birthday, 81.
yeah. Also, I want to touch on this note that you put in here about how he's been playing with Shen and Carbonneau. What
Yeah.
a fun and like brutal line. Like that
Yeah,
is
for
just
sure.
mean.
Yeah.
But can you imagine a future second line of Shen, Holloway, and Carbonneau? That's like we're gonna punch you in the face and just keep hitting. That is excellent
It's
stuff.
no mercy line right there.
Yeah. But if that's, I mean, that's the style Jim Montgomery wants to play, and that's what I'm talking about. So,
Yeah, for sure. Um, well, cool. So another young guy who I think like pretty much has a roster spot already, but what he has to prove isn't to earn the spot, but just not to lose it. and that's Logan Mayu. I would be really surprised if he lost the spot. It sounds like they're ready to give him um, the keys to the the third pair or whatever to start the season. But he has only played what, like 7 games in the NHL, so there is still that factor of earning your spot, or if he were to play in the second pair or something like that, then that's something that definitely has to be earned. And so um, reports around Mayu at the beginning of the season are pretty good. I think that he's been playing with a lot of interesting partners. I mean, like, I think he was playing with Cam Fowler early on, which is kind of a fun offensive looking pair. Um, he played with Tyler Tucker at other points, and then played alongside Philip Broberg for that first game against Dallas, which is, um, you know, that could be a top 4 pairing in the future for the Blues. So really cool to see that experiment start to take shape a little bit. But he got an assist in game 1, right? He assisted Carbonneau's goal. It wasn't an assist from a defenseman like we see a lot of them. It was kind of, he was just the last one that touched it before Carbonneau went, and decided to be kind of crafty with it. But still, still great. It seemed like he was seeing the ice pretty well in that first look. What I have really been pleasantly surprised about with Mayu, as someone who we've been sort of concerned with um, his defensive capabilities, is that Monty and some others that have watched him play seem to be saying fairly positive things about him defensively. I think Monty was saying that in practice, at least, he was stopping a lot of plays, getting a lot of pucks on his stick from a defensive standpoint. So that's great to hear. So like in terms of Logan Mayu, do you have any thoughts on what we've seen so far? What else do you want to see out of him as we ramp up to the regular season? And do you think there's any chance he takes Justin Falk's spot on the second pair?
Yeah, in that Dallas game, he looked like very solid defensively. Not like exceptional or anything, and probably playing with Philip Broberg will help that, but
Yeah.
he looked really like good enough defensively, which was kind of the question on him coming out, is if he could be good enough in his, especially in his first year, in his first NHL minutes. Now it is still preseason, so I don't mean to overreact here.
Hmm.
But the fact that there's at least like something in there defensively versus the reports previously were just there's nothing to work with here. I mean, it seems like Monty is just the defenseman whisperer and can get the most out of every young or old defenseman that he can get his hands on. So, yeah, Mayu could be primed for a very big season here. Again, it is still preseason, so he's
Yeah.
doing well at practice speed, but when it comes to game time, that'll be a different story. And there's only one way to find out, and it's watch the games. So we won't really know until we get there, but I think the early reports are encouraging in terms of what I want to see out of him. I just want to see more of this. I want to see more reports coming out of camp that he's impressing defensively, because we know he can offensively shoot and score and find points, but can he develop the other part of his game that's so critical to being a defenseman in the NHL? That's more what I'm watching for. And so far, there have been a lot of green lights on that side of the puck. So I'd like to see that continue and have him continue to develop as a very solid two-way defenseman in sheltered minutes. And if he can succeed in sheltered minutes, then you can start to get into the conversation of, can he overtake Justin Falk? And I think by season's end, we could see that. But I'm not going to say that that's going to happen to come out of the team. I think that would be pretty ridiculous. But um, I'm absolutely here for Mayu's development. It looks like things are going really well, and this could turn out to be a great win-win trade for both squads.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the big question you asked of, can he develop that defensive side to his game? That I think you nailed it. That is the big question, and it's a long-term one. It's not one that's going to be answered in the next couple weeks before the regular season. So, yeah, encouraging early signs. I mean, like you said, the offense wasn't the big question. It's just, can he be trusted with NHL level competition? And so far it's been, like you said, sheltered, not really against full NHL competition. But yeah, I mean, I think without attaching too much weight to it, it's just a good sign. It's just a good sign, like you said. So yeah, I agree with everything there. And um, I think I think there's a lot of interesting things that could, you know, that could come out of Logan Mailloux being on the Blues, obviously, but just in terms of who he's playing with, right? Like, once they're ready to go and are established NHLers, guys like this, I think the Broberg Mailloux pairing would be so much fun. Like, I think the offensive capability, especially, would be a lot of fun to watch. And then, for that matter, I think Tucker's offense is a little bit underrated. I don't think he's like a huge offensive threat, but like, he scored a few goals last year. He scored a goal in a playoff game, right? So he's not afraid to rip it in there and look for a tip or something like that. So um, I think that could be a lot of fun to see how he slots in alongside each of those guys. So yeah, just hoping, like you said, that we see more of this throughout the rest of preseason. Um, I think the big thing for Mayu is not necessarily earning the spot. I think he's kind of done that for the most part. It's just getting ready for NHL competition, and as we progress through the rest of preseason, competition should get a little tougher. So I think that'll come.
Yeah.
The guys I want to talk about next are the other players that the Blues acquired this summer. So the two UFAs, Pius Suter and Nick Bukestad, two guys who they can both play center. They can both play wing. I mean, I think Pius Suter's obviously going to play center. Uh, Bukestad, it's less obvious. But two guys that were brought in to add to the forward depth for sure. They seem to mostly be playing center. Um, Monty also has tried Bukestad on the wings a little bit, and says they'll sort of continue to look at it both ways. Um, one quote that we got from Nick Bukestad, which I think is kind of funny, is he said about sort of the pace of play right now in the preseason coming off the offseason. He said, "It's very fast. I'm just trying to do my best to pick up the speed and get ready for these preseason games." That's not what you want to hear, but I mean, I'm sure it'll be fine. It's for an NHLer at this point, it is kind of getting back into shape. So I think it's funny that old guy talks about the game being fast. It's kind of funny.
Hmm.
But yeah, so like, what are your thoughts on these two guys? I mean, Bukestad played in the game against Columbus. He saw like 20 shifts, and took, I think, one shot. So I mean, not a huge difference maker in that one, but it's like we said, still early. It's preseason games. It's not a big deal or anything like that. But I mean, I think the conversation around Nick Bukestad and Pia Suter is, how will they fill out the bottom six? Like, how will that look? Who's going to play where? So what are your thoughts currently? I mean, I think my thoughts on this have changed a little bit throughout the summer. So at this point, as we are starting to get into preseason games, um, what are your thoughts on these two guys and how they slot into the bottom six?
Well, with Suter, it seems like he's pretty much got that 3C spot locked up. I mean, they could play him 2C over Shen, but I think that for a lot of reasons doesn't make sense messing with the Shen Holloway Kairu line and having the higher point producer be on a lower line, having the higher goal scorer be on a lower. It just doesn't really make sense for a lot of reasons. But with with Bukestad, I am intrigued by this idea of him on the wing, and it seems like that's really what they're kind of pushing for. Which in that case, does Dvorsky get the 4C spot, or is it Sunny, or
Yeah, this is the interesting
um,
the interesting conversation, I think, is around that 4C.
because then that probably kicks out Toropchenko, which is a shame for our note news memes or whatever, but in terms of the calculus of the team, I mean, Bukestad has a spot for sure. He'll definitely play in the bottom six. I would still probably play him at center, but I could definitely understand wanting to kick him out to wing and get someone maybe a little bit more sure in the dot and get someone else to complement his physical game because as a 6'6" player playing on a line with Nathan Walker, that's already two like players you do not want to come up against and as a fourth line. If you can get a face off winner, if that's what Sunquist can be, then I understand the reasoning for it, even though you know, it doesn't make the ice time itself as exciting. But yeah, I'm super intrigued by it. I still to give an answer, I would still put Bukestad in the 4C spot. Just because I think he can do enough in the faceoff circle, and like I said, that gives that 6'6" frame to be the defensive core piece in the lineup that gives it a much higher floor for defense, which is probably what you're looking for out of a fourth line, anyways. This defense over offense. So I personally would put Bukestad in the 4C spot, but I definitely understand the reasoning for wanting him on the wing. I think him, Jake Neighbors, and Suter would be a super fascinating line of like mixture of ages. You got the young, the middle of career, and the old, and would just be super fascinating play styles. I think Neighbors and Bukestad can be more offensive guys, whereas Suter can hang back and play more defense. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a ton of combinations. I don't want mean to go into all of them, but I am curious to see what they do with Bukestad, especially in these preseason games upcoming, because he hasn't really seen the ice very much. So I'm watching to see what they want to do. If they want to try and play him on wing, it seems like they want to do that. Then I guess we're gonna have to deal with a fourth line of like just dominating physical play, which would be pretty fun. But yeah, there's a lot of combinations. I don't know. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I like the offensive potential of that third line with Nick Bukestad there, but like to be fair, like I think if it is, for example, like a Texier or a Matthew Joseph, like I don't think the likely outcome changes all that much. Like maybe the floor is higher with a guy like Bukestad. And if we get the Nick Bukestad of a couple of years ago, then absolutely it would be. We just kind of don't know what we're going to get out of Bukestad. I think he profiles as more of an offensive guy than a defensive guy historically. Um, so I mean, I think for that reason, like you said, having sort of him and Neighbors leading the way offensively on the third line, I think could be interesting. But at the same time, I mean, I wouldn't hate if they injected a little bit more of an offensive edge into the fourth line either. Like I kind of want to see I kind of want to see more out of Alexei Toropchenko. I mean, obviously, I kind of predicted a career year coming for him, and not a huge one, but like I am kind of hoping that he'll have a bigger year this year, offensively speaking, and I think the talent is there. Um, and so like for that reason, if we're talking about sort of Toropchenko's offensive development and the offensive capabilities of the fourth line, not that it necessarily has to be an offensive line or anything like that. If that is something that is of interest, then I think Bukestad is way more interesting to me than Oscar Sundquist. I think that could be a lot of fun to see how that would play out. But if they want to sort of roll out that identity line again, I think Sonny's probably the guy down there. Um, but I don't know. I think I'd be surprised if they put in Dvorsky as the center of that line, just given the style of the players around him. I'd be much less surprised to see Bukestad centering that line and then Dvorsky like a winger on the third, to be honest. But also, like, this is maybe a conversation we can have a little bit later once we get to him, but like if Justin Carbonneau makes the roster somehow, like he could be on that fourth line, like that
Yes.
could be interesting. Because he's got that physical play. So, and that would be a an easier role to break into the NHL on. It's something that he's already really good at. So, like you said, there's a lot of permutations that are possible, and realistically, I don't know that the differences between all of them are huge. I just think in terms of production, I don't think they're very huge. It's just a difference in what the identity and play style of that line will be. I think wherever Bukestad is, I think the idea would be hopefully that line would become more offensively capable. So if Bukestad is centering the fourth line, I wouldn't hate it. If he's a winger on the third, I wouldn't hate it. I don't really have big preferences one way or another. But if I had to
It's a
pick
nice
one,
plug and play piece.
yeah, for sure. If I had to pick one, I would prefer 4C just because I want to see more out of Alexei Torpchenko in particular. So, anyways, yeah, those are a lot of thoughts on on the bottom six, but I think it is interesting. Like this is where most of the shuffling will probably happen on the roster. Um, cool. Anything else on the UFAs, or do you want to go ahead and talk about a couple other guys?
I think we can move on.
Cool. I wanna. Why don't we just go ahead and talk about Milan Lucic for a second, just because, in terms of new guys, I think he sort of falls into that. Like, he's on a tryout contract right now. Um, I think he's currently day to day. I think he tweaked his groin or something like that, and is just kind of taking it easy, which probably isn't great for his chances of making the roster. I'm sure he's going to want every opportunity to prove himself. Like I said a little bit earlier, I think he's in the battle that in the same battle that Texier and Joseph and maybe even like Dvorsky or maybe even Carbonneau are in, and it's sort of for a backup role. But I don't know. Like I know that he's been out there trying pretty hard and trying to make a good impression and stuff like that. I don't know that I'm really sold on him or anything like that. He played against Columbus. He threw a couple hits. Like I think he played 15 minutes or something like that, and he got an assist for what it's worth. But yeah, like what are your thoughts on Lucic? Do you think there's a role for him on this team, or do you think the Blues should just let him go by the end of training camp?
I'm kind of not a Lucic guy based on what I've seen on the ice so far. I think he looks really slow. I think he looks kind of not up to speed, especially with the rush style of offense the Blues like to play. I think having a guy like Lucic could be pretty harmful for that.
Hmm,
I also think he's a little redundant with a player like Nathan Walker. And
sure.
as much as I love Nathan Walker, I don't really love the idea of having two Nathan Walkers because you're sacrificing a lot of potential on the fourth line
Well,
to
what if I told you that we could literally have two Nathan Walkers? Like, you clone him. Would you?
well,
What would you think then?
that's different because he's Australian.
Okay, fair.
They can do that. But
Oh, true.
apologies for any Australian viewers if we have them. um, yeah, I don't think Lucic really fits on this team. I just don't think he fits this. Like, in theory, he fits the style of hockey you want to play as like a physical, dominating, offensive team. But he just like can't really keep up with the speed of the game anymore. And even his assists like wasn't really it was like Mayhew's point that he got in the first game. It wasn't really he didn't do much. He just dumped it off to Carbonneau. Um, so I'm kind of out on Lucic. I think I get the idea, and I don't hate the idea of having more enforcers on the roster. However, when you have so many spots, or so few spots, I should say, and so many people on the roster trying to fill them, Lucic is kind of like the last guy I would give a roster spot to, and so it just doesn't really make sense with the calculus.
Yeah, I agree. And like, if the goal of filling this spot is to find someone who can fit with the Blues' pace of play, which is like, to be fair, like pretty fast. If the goal is to find someone who fits that, like being in a competition with Matthew Joseph is kind of tough. 'Cause that guy can move. But yeah, I think I'm with you. I think the value that he does add is it exists elsewhere on the roster, and I would prefer for that spot to be given to someone with a higher ceiling, like a Matthew Joseph or a Texier for sure. So I don't know. Like I don't have anything against the guy. I just would prefer if he, I don't know, would prefer that spot to go to someone else. I think.
Sure.
Um, all right,
Anyone
let's
left?
have the Carbonneau discussion, man. I mean,
Finally, you made me
he's
wait.
made everyone wait. He's got a goal. He's got an assist. He just like looks like he never wants to leave the ice. He played both games. I mean, what more could you ask for out of a first round draft pick than what we've gotten from Carbonneau? He just like has endeared himself to the fans again and again and again. This guy's going to be special, I think, and we've been saying we don't want to overreact to preseason hockey, but I think this is not an overreaction to preseason hockey, but rather a an accumulation of of evidence about Justin Carbonneau being this super exciting, dynamic young guy. Adds a lot of value in a lot of ways. So I don't know. What do you want to start with? Like, what have you seen out of Carbonneau or heard about him that's really exciting you about this prospect?
He's just so like shifty. He looks so, and he is such a high, like an insane level of work ethic too. It's the kind of things that you just cannot teach in a prospect. He has it, or in anybody, prospect, player, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He's got it. He's got that it factor about him that makes him so exciting. Because he wants, you could tell he wants this roster spot so bad, and he wants to prove that he is ready for the NHL right now. He wants it more than anybody on the roster, and he's showing it. I mean, this is how you show up and show out, and Carbonneau is absolutely doing that. And if you asked me, like, who I think the best 12 forwards are on the roster, Justin Carbonneau is one of them. He is on that list for me. Positional value aside, JC is one of the best 12 forwards, and I think is proving himself to earn a spot on this roster sooner than later, especially with how well he would fit on the roster. I think it's a really exciting discussion that we can sort of get into, but yeah, Carbonneau has been absolutely showing out, and he plays with his hair on fire every night, practices hard, and is impressing. Like, not just impressing fans, he's impressing the beat writers, he's impressing the coaches, he's impressing the GM. Like, everybody is talking Carbonneau. That's a sign that you're doing something right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I really like your assessment that this guy is probably one of I mean one of the top eight wingers in camp right now. I mean, like for sure. Like that's so exciting to see out of a first round pick. You know, later that summer. So um yeah, I think the big question is can he make the NHL out of camp? Um, if I had to guess right now, I would say probably not. But I think the Blues are going to give him every chance to do it, and I think he's definitely capable of doing it. Um, and if he doesn't, he'll go back to the queue. He'll play with what's his team again? The Armada.
Boisbriand Armada.
Okay, yeah. Um, so he would go back and play with them. Like whenever there was still some uncertainty about where he would go, right? It was between Boston College and the I think it's Blandville, like
Yeah, Boisbriand.
yeah, whatever. But between BC and the Q, I was a big like proponent of the idea of him going to BC and playing in the NCAA. Um, but I'm wondering if the Blues encouraged him to go to the Q because it it's probably a lot easier to convince a guy to come over from the Q than it is to come over from a college team. Maybe like, do you think there's anything to that? So, what I'm sort of saying is maybe they encouraged him to go back to the Q because they want to call him up sooner than maybe we think uh, they could have if he was in the NCAA. So, like, what are your thoughts there? What are your thoughts on how soon we could see him? And if he were to break camp and make the roster, what would it take from him to do it?
Well, I know now. I wish I could quote the source exactly. I was listening to an interview with Doug Armstrong, or perhaps it was the press conference that he had to open the season. But and he made a comment about like, as much as we would love to invite Carbonneau onto the team and get him on the roster immediately, we want to make sure we're doing that for the right reasons and not just out of like a sense of pride.
Mm-hmm.
So of having your first round draft pick make the team the year he was drafted. Um, and so I think that makes sense. But the thing is like the level that Carbonneau has been impressing and showing out in these preseason and training camp stuff has been more so than any buzz I can remember about any prospect or just player in my time following the team, at least in the past several years, that is. Um, and I really think that I honestly do think that he has a chance to make the roster. And if I had to make a claim right now, I think he will. I think he's going to continue at this torrid pace just because he has such a terrific work ethic to get there that it's going to take that and more to succeed in the NHL. But I think he's showing the coaches exactly what they want to see at this point in his career, at this point in his development, which is that he has that level of drive. And not only that, but the skill to back it up. I mean, he's point per game so far in the preseason. Again, preseason. Um, but I think Carbonneau is showing everything that he can on the ice to make the roster. And I feel like the Blues, he's almost, because he doesn't really have a lot of leverage in this situation, but I would say he's almost forcing their hand to show, like, well, I did literally everything I could. How could I not make the roster after all of this? So I'm hopeful and I would love to see it. And I think I'm gonna say it. I think he does make the roster. Plays in the fourth line.
Heard it here first. That'd be really fun, and I think it'd be really fun to see him on the really either of the bottom two lines. Like I think there's a case to be made for an exciting third line of Neighbors, Suter, and Carbonneau. Like Neighbors and Carbonneau would be a fun pairing of wingers in the same in a similar way that not in the same way, but in like a similar way that Holloway and Kyrou are a lot of fun
Yeah.
as wingers. So um, I think that could be a lot of fun to see. But then, yeah, I think those areas of his game, like we said, that physicality and that drive and that compete mesh really well with that fourth line identity. I think um, it's kind of like a weird. I don't know if backwards is the right way to say it, but like there's sort of like an upside down way of thinking maybe, but like I feel like it might be easier for him to get a spot on the third line than the fourth, honestly. Because like I don't know. I think that a winger spot on the third line is kind of up for grabs right now because you have Bukestad who can play center on the fourth line if need be. Nathan Walker can play center. Not saying that he should. So you know, I think it's interesting, and I like your optimism. I am a little more skeptical just because I think there are enough guys that have proven that they are like that have already been playing in the NHL, like Texier and Joseph and guys like that. Um, that I don't think will be playing poorly enough to lose their spot necessarily. But I'm holding out hope. I would love to see Carbo break camp because I think it's one thing to be like it's one thing to just want one of your top prospects to be ready for the NHL. and like be getting that experience. It's another when you think this player can really help the NHL team, and I think that's more so the situation with Carbo, and why he's so exciting is it's not just the excitement of seeing a young player make the NHL. It's the excitement of seeing a young player make a difference in the NHL. I think that's an important distinction, and one that I think Carbonneau will have to prove that he's ready to do the latter if he is to make the team. So I'm hoping he can. I think it's possible. I think you're a little more optimistic than I am. Not because I think he isn't capable, but just because of what I think the Blues are like more likely to do. Um, Boy, I would love it. I would really love it. Any other thoughts on Carbo?
He's awesome, and I can't believe we got him at 19th overall. What a steal! This is going
Yep,
to be. I mean, Jimmy Snuggerud was drafted like what 22nd overall, I think, off the top of my head,
something like
21st,
that.
22nd.
He's in the low 20s.
This is going to be another pick like that. Like you just how did we get this guy?
Yeah. How did he fall that far in the draft? Like he could have gone top 10
10th?
maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's it's crazy. Crazy that he fell that far. But I am glad he did. I'll just say that. Um, I want to close out here by sort of going through. We've been talking a lot about reports that have come out of camp. A lot of what we've seen has been reported by the Blues themselves, or broadcast by the Blues themselves. But a lot of the most consequential information has come from reporters as well. So on that point, Jeremy Rutherford and the Athletic, they've done a roster projection. I think they'll continue to update this as we move through the preseason and as things sort of change. But as of right now, this is their roster projection. I just want to read through it, get your thoughts on it. Starting with the top line: Buchnevich, Thomas, Snuggerud. Buchnevich playing left wing, Snuggerud playing right wing. Holloway, Shen, Kairu as the second line, Neighbors, Suter, Bukestad as the third, Torpo, Sonny, and Walker as the fourth line. And then defensive pairs: Fowler, Pareko, Broberg, Falk, Tucker, Mayu, and goalies obviously Benner and Hofer. So thoughts on that roster construction? Do you think, is there anything you would change first of all, and then is there anything that you think could change? Because like a lot of these, I think are more or less set in stone, or very very nearly are. For example, the top two lines, and probably realistically the top two defensive pairs. But is there anything that you think could change throughout the remainder of camp? And yeah, just general thoughts on roster construction.
Yeah, I think the bottom six is still not set at all. I think that Bukestad spot is up for grabs. I think Bukestad and Sonny could be swapped out pretty interchanged pretty easily. And honestly, I think Torchenko kind of has to fight for a roster spot too, personally at least.
Hmm.
Now they haven't been playing him as much in the preseason to make me believe that. It's just like maybe I just wish he would. His roster spot would be up for grabs. But I think I think that bottom six it still has permutations that we haven't even conceived of yet that are on the way. And yeah, the top six I think does seem pretty set up to this point, especially that Booch Thomas Snuggerud line, Holloway Shen Kairu. I do want to touch on something that Rob brought up in the chat that on 101 ESPN they said Shen and Suter would be rotating center on the second line. I
Hmm.
think that would just be an in-game change of like Shen needs fresh legs, so Suter go take a
Sure.
shift for him rather than like actually starting like one game it's Shen and another game it's Suter. I think that's more just like rotating to keep legs fresh, which is nice to have that flexibility. And I think that would be a situation where you'd see Bugstad get in the mix at center too to give Suter a break.
Hmm.
So I think that there's a lot that Monty has to work with on this roster, and it's really exciting to think about as one of the best regular season head coaches in the NHL, having all these toys at his disposal. I mean, it seems like it's going to be well, it's going to be a fun season. That's all I can say is that I think that whatever permutations end up winning out, it's going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, I think so. I think I think the most important sort of areas of the roster are set, right? That top six, those top two pairs. There is thankfully not that much that is up in the air about those. I think the Blues are in a good situation with what they've got. It's just sort of settling in those depth pieces and who earns a spot. And I think what I really like about their approach, and not that it's a unique approach necessarily, but they're just open to anyone earning the spot, right? And so I think if they sort of keep that philosophy in mind, that will encourage these players to really make a good impression, and that can only mean good things for the Blues. So, um, yeah, really excited to see what we get out of the remainder of preseason. Just to sort of preview what's coming up next. As we record tonight, it's Thursday, September 25th. Their next preseason game will be on Saturday evening in St. Louis against the Blackhawks. So almost a week between games. I think they were. It's not the way they wanted to do it, but it's just the way that the schedule fell. After that, they'll play next week, Tuesday, September 30th, in St. Louis again against Dallas. And then they will close out the preseason with two more games later that week, October 2nd in St. Louis against Ottawa, and then Saturday, October 4th in Chicago against the Blackhawks. So four more preseason games, and then the season starts, man.
We are so close.
We are. Hey, I'll tell you this: as we record tonight, Alec. As we record tonight, we are 2 weeks away from the start of the regular season.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. They're going to be 2 long weeks, but 2 weeks. I cannot wait for the season to start. I'm so excited. So excited to see what this team is capable of. And yeah, excited to see how the rest of preseason is going to play out. But we're going to be here to break it all down as it comes. So yeah, if you want to hear more about our reactions to preseason as it continues to come and our preview of the upcoming regular season, be sure to tune in again. We're here typically twice a week now. We're getting back into that twice a week schedule. Lately, it's been Thursdays and Sundays. I think you can expect something pretty similar to that schedule for the most part. But we always post when we're going live on social media. So be sure to follow us over there at Note News Pod on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. That's truly the best way to help us out. Like this video, follow, rate, review wherever you listen. We're on Spotify and Apple. Those ratings and reviews go a long way and help expand the reach of the podcast. So we appreciate everyone's support in all those ways. Thanks to everyone that's already done that. And yeah, thanks for tuning into this episode of Note News. We'll see you next time, and let's go Blues.
Let's go Blues.